equation. So I'm not saying one, or the other is better. I just always throw caution to the wind about taking money from an IRA and moving it into the policy, because I know your CPA is going to say that was a stupid thing for you to do. Who told you to do that? And then all of a sudden they're going to come after me saying, well, you should have never made that recommendation. So I'm not making that recommendation, but you could run the math with your CPA. And if it made sense, then you should move it. And then let's see, questions. So Lorraine said, please explain the insurance company charging 6% interest for the loan. I get that. I borrow money out and I'm charged for my own money. All right, so Lorraine, I got a really great way to show this. Now, the numbers might not jive with yours, but let me just show you a real client's example. We build these sheets for all of our clients if they want, after their policy's in force. This would be part of like our advanced mapping. So we do this on a kind of one-off basis, but I want you to look at this. A lot of numbers, but just stick.
And I can explain the basics of it too, Chris, when it comes to simple versus compounding.
Yeah, and I think that's important, but let me just show you, Lorraine, a lot of people get hung up on the fact that the insurance company charges you interest, okay? They don't charge 6% right now. It's actually more like 5%, but you're splitting hairs. So the insurance company is going to charge you interest. And I want on here you to pay attention to right here, okay? This actually, let me get my, like Stephen did it. That was kind of cool. Right here is the loan interest the insurance company charges. So that's 5%, okay? And then down here, we just aggregate it for the year. Okay, this is your 5%. So then you're saying, okay, well, why would I borrow money out if I'm charged money on my own money? That's a really good point. But the point really doesn't mathematically make sense the way you're thinking about it. You see, when you put money in right here, this particular example, the person put $440,000 into the policy. Now, listen, Lorraine, I don't want you to get hung up on the numbers. So subtract a zero, add a zero, whatever. They immediately took the loan for $348,000. Okay, they put 440 in, immediately took out, probably within the first 30 days, $348,000. So there's your loan principal. That's the amount of interest that's going to be charged on the loan. Okay, $19,893. What you're saying is, why would I ever do that? Why would I use my own money to pay interest on my own money? Well, the reason for it is, if you were to do the math, if you put 440 in and you took 348 out, what's left? So let me just do the math for you. 440,000 minus 348. I'll just split the difference. $92,000, right? So would you rather earn interest and dividends? Because we know the policies pay guaranteed interest plus dividends. So let's just say this particular example, I think this is Lafayette, so 5.2%. Would you rather earn 5.2% on 92,000, or would you rather earn 5.2% on 440? So just let that sink in for a second, because you're probably thinking, well, of course I want to earn 5.2% on the 440, but how can I earn 5.2% on the 440 when I took 348 out? That would only leave me about 92,000. Yeah, if you're thinking about a bank account, an IRA, or any other account, but see, in the whole life, the insurance company allows you to borrow from your death benefit. They'll literally give you the loan against your death benefit, use your cash value, the 300 or 440. They'll use the 440 as collateral. So they're collateralizing the loan, kind of like what we just showed with all the real estate lending. And now you've got 440,000. Now, this isn't going to be the exact number, but I'll give you the gross because you got cost on this. 440 times 5.2%. $22,880. Now, let's just play devil's advocate and assume that gross is gross. This is not exactly how it would pencil, but would you be okay getting paid $22,880 if you had to give 19,000 back? Everybody would be, right? Because your bank won't do that. Your bank wouldn't allow you to put 440 in, take 348, and still pay interest on the full amount. So Lorraine, just stay with me. So now you've taken the 340 out, and you got to pay interest on that. But you already know that you're still earning interest and dividends on the full amount, which I've already penciled it and said, mathematically, that makes sense. But you see, you don't stop there. This person takes the 348,000 in loan, and they lent that money out through Private Money Club at 16%. So they lend that money at 13% in a first secured position to a lender called ROI Properties. Somebody I lend to, Stephen lends to, a whole bunch of us lend to this big developer. So he's making 13%. So now let's just look at this. They're making 45,000, which you could make if you just took the money from your bank account. You'd make the same amount. And in here, you got to give back 19, right? So we got to give back 19, which means the available amount that we would do would be 38,777 if we paid the interest out of the gains. Okay, so that's what we'd have left. So right here, we made money how many times? Remember, you have 440 earning 5.2%, and then you're earning 13%. But we got to give back 5. So 5.2 minus 5 is 0.2%. So we're making money once there. It's called a spread. And then we're making money twice here. But you could make this just from a savings account. So mathematically, if I just, now that you understand what's going on, let's just focus on bottom line numbers, because every year I'm going to do the same thing. The worst years in these policies are the first couple of years. And I'm going to show you that, because year one, if you did this policy and you did everything I just said, you would lose 6.08%. Why? Well, because you've got a death benefit in this particular example of over $8 million. That's why. The insurance company does not work for free. They are a profit company, and thank God for that, because I love clipping dividends. I love the dividend checks they send every year, and they wouldn't send dividends if they were a nonprofit. So profit away, insurance company. So I would lose 6%. But the next year, if I did the same thing in the same policy, I'd make 1.57. You'd actually make more than that. I'm just showing you the net. But the next year, you'd make 8.39 and then 15.34. Now, that's after paying the loan interest. So I want you to make sure you understand that. Every one of these years, I'm subtracting the stupid insurance company charging me loan interest. But yet every single year, I'm making more and more money. Do you know why, Lorraine? It's called compound interest versus simple interest. And this is where I want to go next. I want Stephen to explain simple interest versus compound interest in a very simple form. But you have to understand, it's not just about the interest charged and the interest paid. It's about what kind of interest is charged and what kind of interest is paid. Compound interest is what you want. Simple interest is what you want to pay. So with that being said, Stephen, I'm going to clear my screen here, and I'm going to have you explain compound versus simple. But hopefully that helped, Lorraine. That was a very good question, and one that a lot of people have.
Yeah, sorry, I got a little distracted. One of my forklifts sold, so.
Oh man, see, Stephen's flipping forklifts with his policy.
Checking out what my profit is.
All right, so I just explained that whole thing to Lorraine. Now, what you were saying before I did that is simple versus compound.
Yeah, so this is kind of another way to look at it. And I love your example, Chris, and it's very detailed, but more on just like a basic level, like how these policies actually operate. So we just kind of asked like a question, like just to, you're asking like, well, if I'm paying 6% for my money, like how's this working? So remember, your money, even when you're paying that 6%, or really it's 5%, and when you're paying that, remember, all that money's still in the policy growing for you. And so what does that look like in the real world? Even though in the real world, we're paying less in interest than what the dividends are growing at. But so this is a very extreme example, but nonetheless, it proves the point on how this works. So if we take a look at this, can you make money earning 4% while paying 6%? Most people would say, well, no, that's common sense. There's no way to make money paying more than what I'm earning. But let's break it down and look at it a little bit different way. So just as an example, let's say you wanted to buy a car, and you've spent the last few years saving up in your savings account at the bank, and you have $25,000 and you want to go buy a $25,000 car. Now, this will work for any amount of money. Actually, one of our business associates, Mr. Burr, Devin Burr, just did this with a $250,000 car. So the exact same thing. But just to show you this nice simple example, $25,000. So you go down to the bank and you walk into the bank and you say, hi, I'd like to withdraw $25,000 from my account. They should just say, okay, it's your money. Here it is. But banks don't do that. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. Anything over 10 grand, they're going to grill you. Why are you using the money? What's it for? Whatever. And not only that, but the bank, I almost can guarantee you, does not have 25,000 cash to give you right then and there. You'll probably have to go to multiple banks or set an appointment to come back a week later. But nonetheless, let's just pretend $25,000. So so what's going to happen is the teller is going to say, hang on, I'll be right back. They're going to get the bank manager. The bank manager is going to come over. And by the way, that bank manager, what do they have on their little name badge? They're called a vice president, right? Do you guys know why they're all vice presidents at banks? It's because it gives the bank legal ability to purchase a, you guessed it, whole life insurance policy on that bank employee by being a key employee, a vice president. And there's vice presidents, a bunch of them at every single bank that you go into. That's why, because banks are the largest purchasers of whole life insurance in the country, in the United States of America, whole life. So anyways, that's just kind of a side topic. So that manager comes over and they say, listen, I understand you want to go buy a vehicle for $25,000. Congratulations on saving your money. However, I'm going to make you an offer. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a magic savings account. And instead of paying you 0.4% in your savings,
when you need an always ready partner to bring your vision to life, Sir Speedy meets your needs with
account, I'm going to bump you up to a 4% annual return in this savings account. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take your savings account, use it as collateral, and I'm going to give you a loan for $25,000. So that way your money is in your savings account. You don't lose it. It's growing for you. And you can go buy that car that you've been saving up for. And you're like, hell yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for doing that. Like, well, what's the loan going to cost me? And they look at you and they say, well, the car loan is going to be for 6% annually. And you look at them and you're like, you know what, Mr. Banker, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I know enough that like basic math. I'm not going to let you give me 4%. I'm going to pay you 6%. I'm going to lose money. Like, just give me my money back. And the banker's going to say, no, let me show you this. And you guys can do the math. I've already done it for you. So let me show you how this breaks down. All right. So we have the bank over here with the savings account, the $25,000, 4%. And over here, we have the 6% car loan. Now, a typical car loan at that amount is going to be for 5 years or 60 months. However, when you get a car loan, what happens when you make that monthly payment each month? So if I do the math, that's $483 a month. Well, what happens is every time you make that monthly payment, that $25,000 balance gets reduced. So the first month is 25, the second month it's 24,618. The third month it's less and less and less. So throughout the year, the balance is diminishing. What is that 6% being charged on a car note? Well, the way that these simple interest reducing balance note, like for example, a car note work is that 6% is charged on the balance of that car loan. So that because that balance is lowering every month and every year, you're getting charged on less and less a month. So at the end of the 5 years, that $25,000 will be worth $29,000 to the bank. So about $4,000 in interest was paid. Now let's look at the $25,000 in the savings account over the same 60 months, but at only 4%. We actually grows to just be over $30,500. So what happened over here? Well, over here, that $25,000 was the first year, and then that money grew by 4%. So the second year, let's say it was $26,500 balance. Well, that $26,500 was then growing by the 4%. So you're getting more growth on that same 4%. The second year, your money of 4% is growing at, let's say, $28,000. So by the end of the 5 years, it's grown on a higher balance each year, which has given us more and more money. So while you would think that you would lose money in this scenario by paying 6% and earning 4%, you actually would have made over $1,500 in this scenario right here. And that's just a great example of when we use these policies, even though we're paying that simple interest to the insurance company to use the money, our money's within that policy doing what? It's compounding uninterrupted at that dividend rate, even when that money's out of the policy. And that's what allows us to get this uninterrupted compounding growth and simultaneously use the money. And then what happens with compounding interest? Well, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger every year for the rest of your life. In fact, this was what Albert Einstein said. Albert Einstein called compounding interest the 8th wonder of the world. He said, those who understand it use it, those who don't pay it. And then when we have uninterrupted tax-free guaranteed compounding interest for the rest of your life, do you see where the power of that comes in? That's why when we create these policies are great for people in their 50s, their 60s, their 40s, like Chris and I. But when we create these policies for people in their 20s, for kids, I get so excited as the advisor because I know how powerful that's going to be for that young person for the rest of their lives. It's unbelievable what these things look like over time. Let me just show you a quick example. So here was a policy where this individual dumped in $50,000 up front and they did $500 a month going into the policy. So look at this thing over time. I mean, in the 10th year of this policy, that compounding return was 55%. In the 20th year of this policy, that compounding return within the policy was 191%. 25 years into it, 281%. But look, the second year was only 21. Why does that happen? Because of the uninterrupted compounding returns. And remember, this policy is going to grow like this, whether you're using that money or not. So that's why we encourage you, put the money in and then take it out and follow the process. It's the infinite banking concept. It's not just the whole life policy. The whole life policy on its own, hell yeah, that's great growth. It's tax-free. You have a death benefit. But when you couple that with being able to move your money into real estate, into business, into notes, into private loans, into private funds, the list is endless. That's where you really start generating wealth. That's how you put yourself on a much better successful path. And that's how you create not only wealth for you and your family now, but also generational wealth, where we can start talking to you about using trusts and keeping the stuff and controlling it from the grave and really creating something special for your family.
I love that, Stephen. That's perfect. And Lorraine, I know you just said you had a light bulb go off. And how many of you on here that have seen this a couple of times? How many of you have had that light bulb moment? I know I have. I've had that light bulb go off. Sometimes it takes a couple of times of seeing it different ways. The wall of numbers, sometimes like it's just tough to kind of get through it, but eventually something happens and you just have that light bulb moment, like Vicky said and Tess. But Lorraine, I just wanted to kind of show you one more thing on the screen here, because this is another thing that's always important to understand is there's really one of the confusing things about what we do is there's 3 interest rates we're talking about. Number one, okay, the first interest rate we're talking about is the interest the insurance company is paying you. So with dividend, so it's interest and dividend, they call it the dividend crediting rate. We're just use Lafayette's, which is 5.2. Some of the companies are higher. We can get anywhere between 5.2 and 6, depending on the carrier. And most of the insurance companies right now are charging 5% or less on the loans. So this is the second interest rate we're talking about, is the interest rate that they're charging on the loan, 5%. But they're paying you compound interest and charging you simple, which is what Stephen just went over. But even if you just do it straight from the surface, 5.2 minus 5 is still a positive 0.2. So this is gain number one, okay? Gain number one just from the surface level. But over here, if you were to take the money in that example I gave you, you lent it out at 13, you could also look at this one and you could say, this is interest rate number 3, which is the interest you're earning. So the interest that the insurance company is paying you compounding, the interest the insurance company is charging you, the interest that you're earning from lending it or taking back debts. But a lot of times we can do this one of 2 ways. We can either subtract the 5% the insurance company charges from what they're paying you, okay? But the way I kind of like to do it, because it's just easier for people to rationalize, is if you're making 13%, we take away the 5 the insurance company charges you, you're making 8. And then over here, you're making the full amount, which you just saw the percentages on Stevens. I showed you the percentages before. So just always remember there's 3 different interest rates we're talking about. Interest paid by the insurance company, always remember compound interest, uninterrupted. Interest charged by the insurance company, always remember simple interest. Interest rate that you earn on the money, your money working for you, that interest rate, and you can subtract the 5% from either side. Doesn't matter. That's why I wrote either way. We could kind of split it right in the middle. You pick and choose. But that's the best way to look at that.